She died.
Yeah, she's dead. So this is weird. This is awkward. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Star Wars Explained Weekly Q&A. I'm Alex.
I'm Molly.
And we're going to talk about Star Wars, but first, as we've been doing, do a quick little catch-up of our lives for the past week, because we got to do something pretty cool.
We did.
We went to see the Beetlejuice musical at the Fox Theater in Atlanta.
Fitting, the Beetlejuice trailer, teaser trailer just came out like that day or maybe the day before.
Yeah, like the day before. I still haven't seen it.
The juice is loose.
I was in a big Beetlejuice mood all weekend.
We went to the show. We watched Beetlejuice the movie after the show just to kind of compare and contrast. The musical was great, but I wanted to bring that up because we were invited to go by the conductor and pianist who played during the show, who is a fan of the channel. And that's just one of those like weird things that when we were kids, we liked Star Wars. And because of that, now we got to go to the Fox, see the Beetlejuice. We got to go backstage and on stage, which, you know, I've lived in Atlanta my whole life, and I've never thought that I'd get to go on stage at the Fox.
Not very many people get to say that they've done that. You know, I think they do tour groups every once in a while back there, but honestly, it was just like any other theater backstage, but it was really cool to be able to go and see up close all the props and stuff that they used and like the different panels for different scenes. We got to see the big sand snake, which was like a dream come true for me.
Gonna tell all the kids that's Shai Hulud.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only sand snake I need in my life.
But yeah, that was really fun, and I just wanted to say thank you, Andy. If you're watching this, we really had a great time, and we appreciate it. And speaking of thank yous, we also need to send a shout out to Brian Kimmett, who joined our Jedi Council level on our Patreon. So thank you so much, Brian, as well, for such an amazing show of support. But to get into Star Wars, we're obviously going to talk a lot about Asajj Ventress this weekend.
She's back, baby.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. that was the big news on Wednesday when she made her triumphant return to the Bad Batch. But to kick us off, Sumil Mukherjee asks for a quick recap of what Asajj has been up to since we last saw her, specifically for people who haven't read Dark Disciple.
She died.
Yeah, she's dead. So this is weird. This is awkward. But basically, from the end of Season 5 of The Clone Wars, we go into Dark Disciple, the book. She teams up with Quinlan Vos to try to assassinate Dooku. It fails. Quinlan falls to the dark side. She kind of comes back to the light side, bringing him back from the dark side.
We should say, though, the idea to assassinate Dooku did not come from her.
Yeah.
It was the Jedi's idea.
Yep.
And so they send Quinlan to go get Asajj to ask for her help. So the idea that the Jedi have decided, all right, enough's enough. We gotta assassinate Dooku, and these are the two to do it. That's crazy by itself.
Yeah.
It's a wild book. You should read it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that again in a little bit. And yeah, I was glad that I read Dark Disciple again recently. We read it together. We have a much more in-depth discussion about the book I can link to in the cards if you want to really hear the full story of Asajj. But at the end of this whole ordeal, she sacrifices her life to save Quinlan, and she dies. And she is laid to rest on Dathomir. That's the last we've seen her until now.
Well, she's laid to rest in a classic spooky Night Sister manner. They take her to Dathomir, to this like temple, and they place her in a dark pool of water with like green magic mist coming off of it. So if you specifically read that part, the end of the book, when they lay her to rest, it kind of leaves a little bit of wiggle room. Like you could read into that and say, maybe there's some witchy magic stuff going on here, and maybe she's not gone forever.
Exactly. I do think that when you first read the book, it is supposed to be a goodbye to Asajj. And the spooky witchy stuff is like whispers of voices saying, "Welcome home, sister." It does seem like the end. But they also have enough spooky witchy stuff going on, not to mention they're Night Sisters, and we know they can resurrect the dead into zombies, we've never seen them resurrect someone like Asajj, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. We don't know how she came back yet.
Dave has a plan. Sounds like Dave wanted to bring Asajj back, not specifically for Bad Batch, but just in general. And I think that he wants to do a whole Tales of the Jedi episode with Asajj. That makes the most sense to me.
You're getting ahead of so many things.
Sorry.
Let's play catch up on that. So first, let's just talk about Asajj, how she came back. A lot of fans were hoping that we would get that explanation. I do think it makes sense that it didn't happen in the Bad Batch, because why would she tell them? Like,
it's not a story that she's gonna just be comfortable telling these strangers.
These strangers who just took shots at her, like, they don't really particularly like each other. She likes Omega, so, the line, "I have a few lives left," that was enough of an acknowledgement to me where we're like, okay, they at least obviously know.
It's a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge moment.
They know Star Wars fans want to have that answer. And I think it was smart that on that very Wednesday that the episode came out, you brought it up to me, but Jennifer Corbett had an interview where she said, "We had several discussions about the book and how her story could continue. How she survived will be revealed in future content. But for this story, we were thrilled to include her and explore her unique connection to and compassion for Omega." So we are going to get the answer, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it'll be in a later episode of The Bad Batch. Maybe it'll be in something else. And that's another question we can address since you hopped to it. But Andrew's Electric Sheep asked if this episode could be like a backdoor pilot to a show about the hidden path, or how do we think her story will continue?
I don't see her character getting her own show. As much as I would love that, and a lot of other people would, I just don't know if she can carry her own show as far as like what she's up to right now.
My gut says something similar, but I would have said the same thing about the Bad Batch.
True.
I do think that there is potential. We've talked about a hidden path show before. I don't really get the vibe that this was meant to. I've seen a lot of people throw around the word backdoor pilot, so I'm like, okay, someone online somewhere said that, and a bunch of people are latching onto it. It's just like, you can sometimes tell when all the comments say like the same thing. You're like, okay, what?
Whose video
Right.
did you watch that had the words backdoor pilot in it?
Right. That specific phrasing. But I don't really think that they are trying to suggest this is going to be the next series, but it does feel very Bad Batchy, where
Sure.
they were introduced near the end of the Clone Wars and then
Yeah.
got their own series.
I will say, since the Bad Batch has kind of turned into what happens to all of the clones, as kind of an answer to that question, we have been seeing a lot more Night Sisters pop up randomly in Star Wars. So if she were to get her own show about, like, continuing the story of the Night Sisters in general, I'd be down for that. I just don't know that the path can hold its own storyline for its own show.
I think it could. I think that that's worth building on. And honestly, the combination of the two together, where we've talked about maybe Asajj and Quinlan are starting a proto-path or something. Maybe we won't see that in the Bad Batch, and maybe we will see it in a future series, or if it's not something that they want to fully explore, like, as a series, then it could be in Tales of the Jedi, which we know is coming later this year.
I think that makes more sense.
I do too.
Just because another thing that might come with a show about the path is people seem to get upset whenever more and more Jedi come out to have survived Order 66. I don't know why that bothers people, but it does, and it kind of raises questions. So there is that.
I think maybe my issue with a Path series right now is that it would just feel like another sequel to the Bad Batch, where we had the Clone Wars go into the Bad Batch, now we're doing the Path. And we've had a lot of storytelling in the Reign of the Empire era, and we have more coming with Andor Season 2, which I'm very excited about, but I tend to want things to spread out a little more. So I guess if they're going to do more Asajj stories, which it sounds like they will, I would prefer Tales of the Jedi, because we can get like what happened to her after her appearance in the Bad Batch, but we could also get a tale of her as a Jedi.
Yeah.
We've barely touched on that. It was in like flashbacks in the Clone Wars, but we could get an episode about her time with Kai and Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And we could get like 3 little vignettes about her life, which that really interests me.
This feels like classic Dave Filoni thinking that, like, yeah, let's resurrect a character like Asajj, a fan favorite character, so that they can give people these little snippets of storytelling for her that people have been asking for years. And the way that Tales of the Jedi is set up, it does set us up perfectly to show like a little bit of her time as a Jedi, a little bit of her time. Well, we saw her time a lot in the Clone Wars of that period, but you know, little vignettes, like you said, of her life, and then, yeah, maybe show us a little bit of what happened when she came back from the dead. I would love to see that.
But now I am questioning myself when you say, like, yeah, let's resurrect this character. I don't think that's a decision they made lightly, and it doesn't sound like it was just for the Bad Batch. So is that something that if they just wanted to tell 3 quick stories about Asajj, like, I don't know if they needed to resurrect her unless they did want to do a full series. So, I don't know. I can see it going either way. I guess I'm more just like, I think I'd rather see something else get out of this same time period. But, you know, seeing her run around with Quinlan Voss saving little Force-sensitive younglings,
that would be cute.
It would be cute. It would be fun. Like, imagine her with a armful of, like, babies she's trying to save, and she's
telling them all to stop smiling.
Yeah, that dynamic would be pretty funny. We're going to stick with Asajj a little bit longer because Brock Kloster wants to know why Tech's databank didn't mention Ventress's pardon or her death. So to go back to Dark Disciple, there was a part where she makes a deal with the Jedi Council to get a pardon for all of her war crimes, and they agree to it. I would assume a couple of things. First, maybe they didn't update things after she died. And because she died on, like, this undercover assassination mission that the Jedi eventually thought, maybe that wasn't the best idea. Maybe they just neglected to update her databank.
Another classic Jedi cover-up.
Yeah, just like, we shouldn't have done that. Let's just pretend that didn't happen.
Anyways,
yeah.
Look over here.
Never mind.
I guess I just didn't think about her pardon being mentioned in a file like that. Maybe those files are like from a specific data bank that wouldn't have been updated with that sort of info.
Yeah, it did seem like, I don't know if it was Tech's personal data bank or if they pulled it out of Republic, how he got all that information. It may have just not been updated. Because
they were just looking for an excuse to condemn her, that could have been file number 1 of 100, and they opened the first one and was like, oh, this doesn't look good.
That's true. Like, it would have been funny if they just opened those were the table of contents.
Yeah.
Literally.
They were just looking for a reason.
So I translated the Arabesh on that datapad to see if there was anything to tell us how she survived. And all of it is just very generic, like, last known location, list of offenses, blah, blah, but it doesn't say all that stuff. So that probably was the table of contents. I think you're right.
Page 1.
I think that was the cover to her book, and they judged that book by its cover.
Boo.
And if they kept on turning pages, they would have been like, oh, she teamed up with Quinlan Voss?
What do you know?
I like your answer better than mine. It's simpler.
I mean, they were in a rush. They were looking for a reason.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
So, yeah, Crosshair just, he might not even know how to work Tech's iPad. He's like, I can't unlock it.
Yeah. That's like Googling something and seeing a super outdated and wrong article and being like, here it is, plain and simple.
Yeah. I did my own research.
Oh, no.
Moving on to another potential Bad Batch character, Sarah Black asks if we think Boba Fett will show up before the end. So we've got episodes 10 and 11 are together, 12, 13, 14, 15. We got 5 more weeks for potentially Boba Fett. I'm leaning towards no right now.
Yeah, I haven't really been thinking that he's going to show up in this whole time. I do think it would be fun. And I know a lot of people think, oh, you can't just, wrap up the story of the clones without addressing Boba Fett. And I think it would be fun if he showed up. But like you said, I don't know if there's time. If we are just going to get like one person per episode from now on to show up as like a cameo to just kind of like add a little bit to the story, then that's cool.
I certainly think he has a place in this story. I don't think it would be just eye-rolling fan service if Boba Fett appeared in, yes, a show that's about clones. But it just seems like we've got so much to wrap up. I don't know how they would work it in.
Mm-hmm.
But Asajj is in the story now. She has a connection to Boba. So there's a chance for it to happen. But yeah, I'm leaning towards probably not.
I don't see character-wise why Boba Fett would want to get involved at this point in his life. He's still pretty young. He's kind of a jerk still. Like, he hasn't aged into the man that we know in the Boba Fett series.
Well, we do know that Class 1 bounty hunters are after targets with high M counts. So maybe he's trying to make a name for himself as a Class 1 bounty hunter, whatever that means.
Is he Class 1 yet, though?
Maybe he's not, but he's trying to, if he gets a high M count. So, I do think that there's an avenue for him to get in there, especially Asajj this past episode was like, you guys have been running around the galaxy talking about M counts, and that attracts attention. So,
I mean, we know Cad Bane's going to show up.
Yeah.
So
another person who has a connection with Boba.
If they showed up, like, not together, because I don't think they would be hanging out best pals together.
No, it does sound like, or seem like by this point they have had that shootout that was going to happen in the Clone Wars. Because Cad Bane has the plate on his head.
Right. Yeah, we could get, like you said, kind of a who's who of bounty hunters in an episode and see them all kind of tracking down M count.
I feel like
bounties.
This has happened 2 or 3 times in this very episode, but I will start an answer and say, I think this, and then I'll talk myself into the opposite, where I'm like...
we've talked about Boba Fett showing up a lot in our live streams, and we keep saying, maybe, it'd be cool, I guess, but unless he were to, show up amongst a bunch of other bounty hunters for this M count situation, I don't think there's really room for him to show up story-wise.
I mean, now that the bounty hunter groundwork has been laid, I do think there's a chance for, just a bunch of bounty hunters. There could be an episode where they're just being chased by a bunch of bounty hunters, and Boba Fett's one of them. And maybe he gets Omega and decides to let his sister go or something. Like, it could be a moral problem for him.
But isn't Boba Fett supposed to be bad for, like, a while?
I don't know. I mean, he has a bit of a soft spot for the clones. Because they look like his father. Sure. I mean, he definitely in the
gotta be complicated for him.
In the Clone Wars, he had an issue just gunning them down mercilessly. Like,
sure.
Aura Singh had to do it, and she was disappointed that he wouldn't. So,
Aura Singh, come on.
Yeah, she's mean. She's a mean lady.
Makes for a great bounty hunter.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I've changed my attitude over the past couple minutes. Now I'm kind of leaning towards, hopefully.
We also...
I think it could happen. I'll say like 51% chance of happening.
We also know that Daniel Logan has recently been in studio to do a voice for one of the other clone cadets in this season. So if you got him in studio...
Yeah. I do think that Logan would have been happy to come back and voice a clone at that age. Like, he just always seems to be excited about Star Wars. So if they were like, hey, can you come in and just voice this slightly older clone? He'd be like, yeah, I'll do that. Mm-hmm. But I agree. If he's been in studio, it does seem like there was a chance. So 52%.
I like to think that they were like, all right, Dave, we got it all written out. We're going to get Ventress back in the show and back alive in Bad Batch. And while we're at it, why don't we add Boba Fett and Cat Bane? And, like, they start listing off these characters that would kind of make sense. Like, I like the idea of them pushing Lucasfilm's limit on how many other recognizable people they can get in there.
I just noticed you're wearing your bounty hunter shirt, too.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't have anything with Asajj on it, sadly. So this was the closest thing.
YHC Tower has the next question, and actually, he's going to be one of our upcoming guests on the Clone Zone. But he asks what Planet Georgia would look like now that we've seen Planet Florida and Planet Louisiana in Andor and the Bad Batch. Although people have been saying the planet from Bad Territory is more like the Everglades, but...
Yeah. Well, right now, it would be covered in space pollen.
That's... The first thought that I had was that, so Atlanta is known for having a lot of trees for a city of its size. So I was thinking kind of a mixture of Tatooine and Endor. It's like very sandy and it's all pollen. It's all yellow sand, but there are still trees poking out of the sand.
Well, it's not sandy. You'd have to have something like Georgia red clay.
Oh, I like that. It could be buried under a thin layer of pollen sand.
Sure, yeah. The wind is just yellow on this planet.
And like the air in Bad Territory, it will kill you.
Yeah.
It will destroy your eyes and your nose. I've been having a lot of problems with pollen the past week or so. My eyes have been killing me.
Oh. What else? There would be a couple of nice big sport arenas. There would be where the manufacturing plant for blue milk would be there.
Carbonated blue milk.
Ugh.
Actually, I guess Coca-Cola is technically canon. It's
That's
at Galaxy's
true.
Edge, so...
All that stuff is made here, and
Planet Georgia has
Georgia.
The Coca-Cola factory.
Once every couple of years, there's a really bad snowstorm, and it destroys everyone's world.
And everyone that lives on Hoth makes fun of them.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below, or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky.
And as always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.